Senator Kennedy goes on epic rant, forces Amy Klobuchar to sit there and take it. In a modest studio tucked away in the heart of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, the air buzzed with anticipation as Brian, the host of the fiery political commentary show, Polite, adjusted his microphone and leaned toward the camera. His face, lit by the soft glow of studio lights, carried the intensity of a man on a mission. "Hey, y'all, and welcome to Polite." He began, his voice a rich blend of Southern drawl and unapologetic conviction, resonating through thousands of living rooms across America. "I'm Brian, and tonight we're diving headfirst into a scandal that'll make your blood boil, the shameless waste of your hard-earned tax dollars by a bloated, out-of-touch government." Thupper's Senator John Kennedy just unleashed an epic takedown in the Senate, torching Senator Amy Klobuchar and the Democrats' bizarre obsession with defending programs that sound like they were cooked up in a fever dream. Buckle up, folks, because we're about to unpack this mess. Brian paused for effect, letting the weight of his words settle over his audience. His show, Polite, had become a staple for those fed up with Washington's excesses, a platform where he wielded his sharp wit and unrelenting skepticism to hold the powerful accountable. Tonight's topic was a doozy, and Brian could hardly contain his excitement as he launched into the heart of the story. "Let me set the scene," he continued, his eyes glinting with a mix of amusement and outrage. Thupper Senator John Kennedy, that silver-haired bulldog from right here in Louisiana, stood up in the Senate chamber this week and laid out a laundry list of government spending so ridiculous you'd think it was satire. We're talking about your tax dollars money. You sweat for money. You sacrifice for being funneled into projects that sound like they belong in a bad comedy sketch. And who's defending this nonsense? None other than Senator Amy Klobuchar from Minnesota, clutching her pearls and acting like these programs are the backbone of America's future. Let's dive into the madness, shall we? The studio lights seemed to burn brighter as Brian leaned forward, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial tone. "First up, let's talk about what Kennedy called spending porn stuff so outrageous it triggers your gag reflex. Picture this $3 million of your money going to produce Sesame Street in Iraq. Yeah, you heard that right. Big Bird and Elmo are apparently critical to rebuilding a war-torn country. Now I'm all for kids learning their ABCs, but $3 million to air puppet shows halfway across the globe. Come on, folks! That's not charity, it's insanity." The camera zoomed in on Brian's incredulous expression as he continued, his hands gesturing wildly to drive the point home. And it gets worse. The government's shelling out another $3 million to Zambia for what now circumcisions and vasectomies. I don't know about you, but I'm pretty sure the folks in Baton Rouge would rather see that money fix our crumbling roads or fund our schools. But wait. There's more, $500,000 to buy electric buses in Rwanda, $67,000 to give insect powder to kids in Madagascar. Insect powder. What in God's name is that? This isn't some summer camp dare where you eat a cricket for laughs. This is real money being spent on something nobody can even explain. Brian's voice rose, his southern accent thickening with every word as he rattled off the list. And don't even get me started on the $3.6 million we're sending to Haiti. You ready for this? Pastry cooking classes, cyber cafes, dance focus groups, and brace yourselves, support for male prostitutes. I'm not making this up, folks. Your tax dollars are funding this nonsense. And then there's $833,000 for transgender people, sex workers, and their clients in Nepal. Nepal? I mean, what in the world is going on here? Who's signing off on this stuff? Because it sure as heck isn't Congress. He slammed his hand on the desk, the sound echoing through the studio as he leaned closer to the camera. Senator Kennedy's point is crystal clear. This isn't just wasteful, it's a betrayal of the American people. These aren't decisions made by elected officials accountable to you. These are bureaucrats, unelected pencil pushers, taking the money Congress appropriates and blowing it on whatever pet project catches their fancy. And Kennedy's had enough. He's calling for a rescission, a fancy word for yanking back that money before it's spent on more of this lunacy. Across the country, in the stately halls of the U.S. Senate, the scene Brian described had unfolded with all the drama of a political showdown. John Kennedy, with his trademark folksy charm and razor-sharp intellect, had stood at his desk, a stack of papers in hand, his voice carrying the weight of 8 years in Washington. Mr. President, he began addressing the Senate's presiding officer. I've been here long enough to hear a lot of talk about reducing spending. Everybody says they want to do it. It's like saying you want to go to heaven. Raise your hand if you're ready to go today. A ripple of laughter spread through the chamber, but Kennedy's face remained serious. Most folks want to live a little longer, and that's how it is with cutting spending around here. Everybody's for it until it's time to actually do it. Well, I'm done waiting. The American people are done waiting. We're spending their money on things like pastry classes in Haiti and insect powder in Madagascar, and it's time to stop. As Kennedy spoke, Amy Klobuchar sat across the aisle, her pen moving furiously over a notepad. The Minnesota senator, known for her measured demeanor and tireless advocacy, was not about to let Kennedy's rhetoric go unanswered. When her turn came, she rose, her voice steady but firm. Mr. President, she began hacking away at public broadcasting, and international aid isn't just short-sighted. It's dangerous. These programs aren't frivolous. They're strategic. Public broadcasting, like NPR and PBS, educates our children, informs our communities, and strengthens our democracy. And international aid. It's not about handouts, it's about protecting our national security. Diseases like Ebola, malaria, or bird flu don't respect borders. If we don't address them where they start, they'll come to our shores. We know this in Minnesota, where our Somali American community has seen firsthand the chaos in places like Somalia. When America shares its resources in a smart, targeted way, we don't just help others, we help ourselves. Klobuchar's words were met with nods from some colleagues, but Brian, watching the footage from his studio, wasn't buying it. "Oh, Amy Klobuchar's got a silver tongue, doesn't she?" he said, smirking at the camera. "She talks about national security, about helping communities. But let's be real, most of these programs are sacred cows for the Democrats. They're not about saving the world, they're about keeping their voter base happy and their pet projects funded. And let's not forget who's running the show at NPR, Catherine Marr, the CEO who got grilled in Congress for saying the First Amendment is a challenge because it makes it hard to censor content. That's not journalism, folks, that's control. And it's exactly why people are losing trust in these institutions." Brian leaned back in his chair, his mind racing as he connected the dots. To him, this wasn't just about a few $1 million here or there, it was about a deeper, more insidious agenda. "There's a reason they're pushing this stuff," he said, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "You've heard the phrases right. You will eat the bugs. You will live in the pod. They're testing the waters, folks. They're seeing how far they can push these ideas, whether it's insect powder in Madagascar or so-called 15-minute cities, where everything's under surveillance. This is about control, about a global elite trying to reshape how we live, and they're using our money to do it. But guess what? We're watching. The American people are waking up, and we're not going to let this slide." As the show cut to a commercial break, Brian's words lingered in the air. He urged his viewers to stay tuned, promising to dig deeper into the fight between Kennedy and Klobuchar. This isn't just about budgets, he said, his voice rising with passion. This is about who gets to decide America's future, you, the people, or a bunch of bureaucrats and elites who think they know better. Stick with us because we're just getting started. The camera panned out, leaving Brian's intense gaze fixed on the audience, a spark of defiance in his eyes as he prepared to take the battle to the next level. The U.S. Senate chamber in Washington, D.C. hummed with a tense electricity, the kind that crackles when ideas collide and egos clash. The polished wooden desks gleamed under the soft glow of chandeliers, and the air was thick with anticipation as Thupper Senator John Kennedy rose to his feet, his silver hair catching the light like a beacon. His weathered hands gripped a thick stack of papers, each page a testament to the absurdity he was about to unleash upon his colleagues. The Louisiana senator's voice, rich with the cadence of the bayou, carried a mix of indignation and folksy charm as he addressed the presiding officer. "Mr. President," he began, his eyes scanning the room, "I've been in this chamber for 8 years, and I've heard a lot of talk about fiscal responsibility. But talk is cheap, and the American people are tired of it. They want action. They want us to stop wasting their hard-earned money on projects so ridiculous they'd make a hog blush. So let's get to it." Kennedy's words were met with a smattering of chuckles from the Republican side of the aisle, but across the chamber, Thupper Senator Amy Klobuchar sat ramrod straight, her pen scratching furiously across a notepad. Kennedy held up his papers, his voice rising with each example. "Let's start with this $3 million to produce Sesame Street in Iraq. Now, I love Big Bird as much as the next guy, but are we really saying that puppets are the key to stabilizing the Middle East? And then there's $3 million for circumcisions and vasectomies in Zambia. I'm no doctor, but I'm pretty sure we've got bigger priorities right here at home. How about $500,000 for electric buses in Rwanda? Or $67,000 for something called insect powder for kids in Madagascar? I don't even know what insect powder is, Mr. President, but I'm betting the folks in Shreveport would rather see that money fix their potholes." The chamber erupted in laughter, but Kennedy wasn't done. He flipped a page, his voice taking on a sharper edge. "And get this $3.6 million to Haiti for pastry cooking classes, cyber cafes, dance, focus groups, and Lord help us, male prostitutes. $833,000 for transgender people and sex workers in Nepal. This isn't a budget. It's a circus." The room buzzed with murmurs, some senators nodding in agreement, others shifting uncomfortably. Kennedy's point was clear. These weren't programs Congress had debated and approved in the light of day. They were the brainchildren of unelected bureaucrats, quietly diverting funds to projects that seemed to mock the very taxpayers footing the bill. "This is why I'm calling for a rescission," Kennedy declared, slamming his papers down. "We need to claw back this money before it's spent on more of this nonsense. It's gut check time, folks. You either believe in fiscal responsibility or you don't. And if you vote against this, in my opinion, you ought to hide your head in a basher." The chamber fell silent, the weight of his challenge hanging in the air. Amy Klobuchar, her face a mask of determination, rose to respond. The Minnesota senator adjusted her glasses, her voice steady but laced with urgency. "Mr. President," she began, "I respect my colleague from Louisiana, but his rhetoric oversimplifies a complex issue. Cutting funding for public broadcasting and international aid isn't just short-sighted, it's dangerous. Programs like NPR and PBS are the backbone of our educational system, providing resources for communities that rely on them. And let's talk about international aid. Those $3 million for health programs in Zambia. That's about preventing HIV/AIDS, a disease that could spiral into a global crisis if left unchecked. The funding for Sesame Street in Iraq. It's not about puppets. It's about giving kids in a war-torn country a chance to learn and dream. And yes, even the programs that sound strange, like nutritional initiatives in Madagascar, are about tackling malnutrition in ways that could save lives. We can't bury our heads in the sand, Mr. President. When we invest in global stability, we invest in our own security. Klobuchar's words drew nods from her Democratic colleagues, but back in Baton Rouge, Brian was watching the live feed from his Polit studio, his jaw clenched. "Oh, Klobuchar's good, I'll give her that," he said, leaning into the camera with a wry grin. "She's got that Midwestern charm, making it sound like every dollar we spend abroad is saving the world. But let's cut through the fluff, folks. Is she really defending the American taxpayer, or is she just protecting the Democrats' sacred cows? Because when I hear about millions going to pastry classes in Haiti or sex workers in Nepal, I don't see national security. I see waste." Brian's voice rose, his hands gesturing animatedly as he pivoted to another target, NPR, and its CEO, Catherine Maher. And let's talk about public broadcasting, since Klobuchar's so keen to defend it. NPR's run by Catherine Maher, who got dragged before Congress a few months ago for some pretty revealing stuff. This is a woman who said the First Amendment is a challenge because it makes it hard to control what people say. That's not journalism, folks, that's censorship. Dressed up in a fancy title, Brian pulled up a clip from Maher's congressional testimony, his voice dripping with sarcasm as he narrated. Here's Catherine Maher, former Wikipedia bigwig, telling Congress that free speech is tricky because it lets people say things she doesn't like. And this is the person running NPR, an organization that's supposed to be neutral, funded by your tax dollars. No wonder Kennedy's fed up. No wonder the American people are fed up. NPR and PBS aren't what they used to be. They're not about bringing us together anymore. They're platforms for a certain kind of ideology, and Klobuchar's out here acting